The Curate's Egg, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Part 4, Antinatalism, Mimesis, and Music Parties.
Many people from amongst the scholars and the pious have regarded him as to have been the Mujaddid of the 14th century.
These types of statements are not uncommon amongst the Deobandis. Those who have an uncritical eye and who are in blind allegiance to, and they pursue blind following of their leaders and their elders, do not look at the lives of their founders, their pioneers, their ideologues in any detail. And if one is to scratch the surface, look at the primary source texts, look at the background of the individuals that they praise so highly, they would come to rather different conclusions. But because the Deobandi movement itself is, it produces, as I've discussed before in my previous series, the House Divided, Tabligh Jamaat House Divided, they promote half-baked scholarship. They scantily cover the source texts of Islam, and they have an isolationist outlook, so they have no interaction with the wider world. So to describe someone as a mujaddid, as the speaker states, it's hyperbole and it's inaccurate, really. Another term that's commonly used for Ashraf Ali Thanvi is Hakim al-Ummah, the physician or the sage of the nation. That's just a stretch too far. I would call him the Hakim of Deoband, the physician of Deoband, or the scholar of Deoband, but he had no real influence, as was proved in the last video in this series, to the wider Ummah. In fact, he's viewed with, how I view him, with disregard. He's not actually viewed, he's disregarded altogether. Even though his works are available in English, Arabic, Persian, and Urdu. So here, I want to talk about the and again, I use terms, and I am really not being facetious when I use these terms. We have almost homoerotic relationships developing between these ideologues and their teachers. And an example of this is the disdain for womanhood. Even though they may be married to women, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, for example, was married twice, they promote certain things like antinatalism. And here's an example of it. It says, and again this is from the most authoritative biography of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Ashraf al-Sawani', it gives an anecdote from the time of the second Meccan retreat, which was circa 1893. It says, Thanvi's wife had joined him in Mecca along with her maternal aunt. The aunt once had the opportunity to converse with Imdadullah, this is Thanvi's spiritual guide, about Thanvi's marital affairs. She requested the saint to beseech God to bless the couple with a child. Imdadullah later conveyed the aunt's wishes to Thanvi, saying, "While I do pray for you to be blessed with children, I desire for you to be just as I am, childless." So, according to Ghawri, Imdadullah had enumerated the disadvantages of rearing children in the corrupted society. After hearing Imdadullah's concerns, Thanvi replied, "I desire for myself the condition of life you desire for yourself." Imdadullah heard this and he became entirely elated. So this again is totally against the teachings of Islam. Islam actually promotes for people to have children. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, had many children and many wives, and he enjoyed and loved his children, particularly his daughters who grew into adulthood. Here we have two men agreeing not to and being pleased with not having children. Another point that promotes this sort of homoerotic relationship, and the reason why I use homoerotic again, I intend not to offend anyone here, but There are strong scenes, there are strong statements of homoeroticism, as well as pederasty, as well as, and I've given you the references before, bestiality. So this context is very sexually diverse, shall we say. So this is an instance mentioned in the thesis of discussing Ibn Arabi's mystical theology, but we won't talk about the mystical theology, that's for another part. It states that Haji Imdadullah had multiple forms of rituals that he would participate in. And an explicit example, according to the authoritative biography, was once a Meccan Sufi master of the Shadhiliyya order. Remember, Haji Imdadullah was a Chisti, so there was a separate order called the Shadhiliyya. And his associates were invited Imdadullah to share food and fellowship with the Shadhili followers. Imdadullah accepted the invitation on the condition that there be a spiritual session involving music. So the Chisti Sufi Sheikh is actually requesting the Shadhili Sufi Sheikh and the followers to make sure there's music at the, and I've called it a party. It is a party, it is a gathering. So Imdadullah actually wants music to be there. Some of his disciples objected to this on legal grounds because standard normative Islam, and there's a huge discussion on this topic, but let's just give the standard normative opinion. Music is generally frowned on. You won't find music in mosques or in madrasas or in Mecca, Medina. You won't find things like music playing in those sorts of locations. So they objected and they excused themselves on legal grounds. Maulana Thanvi, however, unhesitatingly accompanied his Sufi master, saying, "We are not more religious than you." So, antinatalism, music parties. This didn't sit well with all Deobandis. And here I quote Muhammad Qasim Zaman, and his analysis of the situation is, "The Deobandis themselves have never been a happy family. However, as you will see throughout this book, there were severe disagreements among leading Deobandis on how the political interests of the Muslim community were best served." It carries on at the bottom. Thanvi remained a polarizing figure within the ranks of the Deobandis. His career straddles this intra-Deobandi contestation. So it's not a happy family, according to Muhammad Qasim Zaman. Another example of a scholar who came out and railed against this, and the term that was used was antinomian behavior. It says, there were important differences between Imdadullah and Gogohi on the legitimacy of certain ritual observances amongst the Muslims of India, and he includes things like ceremonies intended to bless the souls of the dead, or those commemorating the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, at which the Prophet himself was believed to have made an appearance, with people standing in his honour. Remember, this is Deobandi circles we're talking about. Or the death anniversary of Muslim saints, especially at their shrines. To Rashid Gangohi, these were dubious practice that lacked scriptural proof, and some of them were tantamount to unbelief. So this is not a happy family. There are huge fractures and contestations within this movement, and the story that we are sold is that Ashraf Ali Thanvi is the best thing since sliced bread. However, we see these inappropriate relationships in regards to antinatalism, blind following of his Sufi master, attendance of parties where the master actually insists on music being present, and as will come in the future, explicit. The term used in the BDSM community is TPE, Total Power Exchange. This is the only thing I can think of to describe aptly the relationship that's going on here. Stay tuned for many more videos.